Arcanists is a multiplayer artillery game made by Jagex for their online gaming website FunOrb back in 2008. You gather a book of various elemental-themed offensive and defensive spells used to attack your opponents and defend yourself from their attacks. There are other factors such as terrain and environmental hazards as well that make for a simple, fun game. In other words, imagine something kind of like Worms, but at least in my opinion, much better. It was really popular on FunOrb for a decade until the website's closure in 2018, although the last couple of years it was really a ghost town in there. It was really sad. But luckily, passionate fans were able to make a deal with Jagex to bring it back with new maps, new spells, and free to play on Steam. At least for now. There's apparently some behind the scenes issues going on, but all that aside, it's been fantastic having the game back and playing in the new maps as well. I originally wanted to make a simple tier list video for the different playable environments in Arcanists, both old and new, but then I realized I only dislike playing on 2 maps, and while I do have strong opinions on some, all but those 2 maps would be at least B tier. But at least from my personal experience whenever I've played Arcanists, there's one map that gets a lot of hate, and that's the Dark Fortress map. I've actually set up 4+ player matches with the map on random, and if it happens to choose Dark Fortress, there are always 1 or 2 players that will immediately quit the match on round 1 because they just hate this map. Weirdly though, I love the Dark Fortress map, and while it's not my absolute favorite map, it's definitely in my top 3. So I figured instead of a map tier list, I'd just make a simple video defending the Dark Fortress map. Obviously, this is all entirely my opinion, and I'm not going to force you to like it. I doubt I could anyway. But I at least want to make a case for it. When opening up a Dark Fortress map, the first thing you'll notice aside from the dark aesthetic is that it's a rather tall map. In fact, while most maps at default size are the same rectangular size, this is one map whose default is a very tall rectangle. This kind of makes it a good contrast to Arcane Crystals, which is in turn a very long rectangle map. It's also the darkness to the light of the Sky Castles map and its aesthetic themes as well. As you go from top to bottom on the Dark Fortress, you have a lot of clouds. Then a sort of middle tower connected to a bigger structure that goes around the edges of the bottom half of the map, divided into basically different rooms. For the default Armageddon spell, you have lava that rises each round, taking away health every time you're underneath it at the end of the turn. So what are the main reasons that people don't like this map? Well, the first common complaint is usually that the giant layer of clouds makes most aerial spells useless because there's so much in the way that it would take dozens of rounds for something to be able to hit the bottom half of the map, where most players also typically spawn at. Even really powerful ones like the meteor have a good chance of being stopped before hitting a player, and you only get 1 of those. Similarly, if you're playing with a different Armageddon spell that isn't the default lava one, then half of those are also blunted by this part of the map as well. Then the other major complaint is that moving around the map is more difficult because of how vertical the map is. The middle tower and outer walls make it difficult to leave the main area at the bottom unless you have flight, and even then the amount of maneuvering it would take to say go from here to here means you might even run out of time even with flight. I've noticed that QuickTime games are very popular in Arcanists, and if you did a QuickTime match in this map, trying to navigate elsewhere in the map would basically be a perceived waste of time, unless you wanted to waste an arcane gate and teleport. Plus, if the Armageddon spell is lava, once the lava starts, it just makes it more likely that half the players will just die from that. And perhaps that cheapens the thrill. So let's address those 2 criticisms briefly, and then I also want to bring up the things that I love about this map. Now, I understand that a map making a third of your spells almost useless is frustrating, but I'm not gonna lie, aerial spells are often the crutch for many people playing this game. If it's getting difficult, just hurl the giant rock from the sky and wreck shit. Don't get me wrong, I love aerial spells, and I'm certainly just as guilty of this as most players are. There's nothing wrong with using aerial spells, but I actually find it a fun challenge to try to win through other means, and this map can actually help force that. For the navigation complaint, I am a bit more sympathetic. It is probably the one thing that prevents this map from being my absolute favorite in the game, but just as the map forces you to use fewer aerial spells, this map is also great at forcing players to dig their way through the map. I've honestly had a lot of fun using something like dwarves in this map to make tunnels that reach the other players whenever flying around to the other side just isn't a good option. I think players don't want to waste a turn just using arcane arrows to tunnel in case a player next turn hits you with a rain of fire arrows or something, but in a strange way the added protection from aerial spells means it's probably not a waste of your time. It also kind of adds a fun challenge of, do I activate the shield spell now? What if I just waste the shield spell because an aerial spell is probably not going to hit me? Now, I don't want this to come off as a get good answer, because I really don't mean it that way. I'm hardly the best Arcanist player, I've definitely lost more matches than won. But I find the challenges of this map fun, and I think embracing that can make you a better player. What are some things I love about this map, though? Aside from the previously mentioned challenges of it, I love how the bottom half of this map is basically the only indoors map. Other maps have caverns or underground openings, but usually they're very jagged or weirdly shaped, making it a cramped space for only 1 or 2 people at a time unless someone tunnels their way there, or an Armageddon spell kind of opens the area. But here you have basic walls, and it actually feels like an indoor space. Having to worry about your spells bouncing off the walls and ceilings, I think, is yet another fun challenge to the map. Whenever the map does have an Armageddon spell that spawns at the bottom of the map, like Fissure or Volcano, it's fun to be forced to move up to the Clouds layer and fight there as well. Almost like you've got one phase fighting on one part of the map and then another phase fighting on another. Like I said, this is all just my opinion, and if you still don't enjoy this map, that's perfectly fine, it is what it is. But I do wish people would give this map more of a chance. It'd be nice to have an 8-player match on this map without 3 people dropping out right away, you know? In any case though, thanks for watching. I'm Emperor Tiger Star, and I'll see you guys next time.